Oh, when does that happen?
Really confused.
Come here, follow this thing. Does that work? There you go. I guess we got the... I guess it can't spin indefinitely. So. All right, so... Altman and Wellman. So the way I've tried to set this up is to draw a contrast, right, between Pogge and Singer on one hand and Altman and Wellman on the other. And the contrast being this distinction between the domestic and the international. So Pogge and Singer both attack the distinction, right, that there is a difference between what justice requires domestically and what justice requires internationally. They say it's the same thing. Altman and Wellman say, no, it cannot be the same thing. Right? So whatever might be true internationally, and that can be maybe more demanding than most people think it is, there is a different story about what we're required to do domestically about inequality. And that's really the argument they try and make good on. So I hope you wrote this down, but they think, for example, that their argument is consistent with what Singer is saying in the following sense, that maybe we should perform rescues in that sense of saving people who are dying. But then in addition of that, there's an extra layer that Singer doesn't talk about, right, which is this domestic inequality problem. And that's where the relational egalitarianism argument comes from. That relational egalitarian argument is something Singer rejects. All right, so there is a tension between this, right? We've seen this. Like, if you believe that you should have a very extensive fighting of redistributive extensive fighting of inequality internationally, then you cannot also think that there is a large space for self-determination for individual countries. And that's exactly why Altman and Wellman are concerned about this, right? Because if there is a lot of demands on us to deal with inequality globally, then individual countries won't have that much room to decide on how they want to deal with inequality within their own borders. That question has already been answered internationally before you get to the domestic. Or vice versa, right? You might think if a country gets to do a lot of deciding domestically about what type of welfare state or inequality you would like to allow, then that's going to put a limit on how much you can think international justice can require. Right? There's a lot of leeway for different countries to do different things. Countries could be either very unequal or very equal. It's up to them because of self-determination. Well, then you cannot also think that we should be internationally fighting inequality all the time because, well, guess what? You're going to get that because of self-determination. Right? And we're supposed to respect that in the first place. So that's the tension that they want to talk about. Pogge and Singer accept this tension, right? And they say, yeah, so much the worse for self-determination. Right? And of course, self-determination is the name of the game for Altman and Wellman. So they want to see, like, how can we make sense of this? Right? So that's what I just said. So here's the strategy, right? So this is the way they go about it in that chapter. They say, try to convince you to not go all the way in with Singer and Pogge and say it's just one same issue internationally all across the world. So they ask first, like, what is really the value or the meaning of equality? In what sense should we care about equality? Or vice versa, right? What's the problem of inequality? And then they say, well, does that thing, the value of equality, the problem of inequality, really require that we start thinking about this in only international terms? Right? And so the chapter as it goes says, well, there's different kinds of equality you might care about, luck egalitarianism or luck equality, or relational equality. Luck equality sucks, right? Relational equality, yay. And the relational stuff really matters mostly within your own society, not internationally. That's how they're going to go about it, right? All right? Is that clear? Yeah, see?
So they focus more on equality within the state before reaching out globally?
Yes, although I have this little alarm bell on the back of my head going off about the word before. It's not that they think that the domestic inequality is more important than the international inequality. But they do think that, roughly the idea is this. Like, so you have a world in which people are literally dying because they're starving and so poor that they less than $1 a day. Right? They're so poor that they're dying. What does justice require about that? Right? That's one question. And they think, well, what it requires is that you bring them up to sort of a minimally decent level, that they're not dying anymore, and maybe can go to school and have some basic roof over their head, whatever, right? Like whatever the decent level is going to be. But then over and above that, you don't owe them internationally anymore. So it's like a sufficiency threshold. Like when they have enough, you've done enough. That's okay. But then domestically, within your society, much more can be required, I think. So you might be really, really rich, Bill Gates rich, right? And as long as people across the world all have enough, justice doesn't require that you do anything else for them anymore. Of course, it would be nice, right? But it's not required. But within your own society, people who have enough and you're Bill Gates rich, there might be still further requirements that you reduce inequality between you two. And that's because the relation as fellow citizens that you're standing in, I think, causes extra claims to arise. Now, the word before was causing alarm bells because it might be that they say, well, the most important thing, the first thing on the agenda should be getting people to enough, and then we start doing the inequality stuff. Right? Maybe that's an open issue. But the main point is saying is that these are two different questions. One, get people to enough, and then the other one is get people to not too unequal. Did that get where you're? Did that help? What's unclear?
I got lost. Like,
Where?
you're talking about. Okay, so after you said the before, you're saying how.
Oh, so like you said, like you have to deal with domestic inequality before you deal with global inequality. That was your question. And I said, yeah, that's fine. I thought you probably were on the right track, but I wanted to jump on the before word because before can mean the first thing you do, right? So that, like there's so many days in the week, I have so many dollars in my pocket, right? So what's the first problem I tackle? Right? And if you think that their point is the first problem we should tackle is make sure that inequality domestically is solved, and then whatever money we have left we can spend internationally, that's not what they're saying.
So what they're saying is you do it at the same time?
So they're not making any priority claims about it. The point is, whatever might come first, I think they would say, first you have to solve the absolute starvation problem, because it's worse. But whatever might come first, there are two separate issues here. So
Oh, okay. So they're
before or after is not what they're talking about. So.
Okay, so there are problems. But then there was a question we were saying, like, why do they think the problem? I mean, why do they think inequality domestically goes over global inequality?
Well, so it goes over in the sense that it can require that you do more for poor people. So you should, right? If you're a rich American person, you should do things for poor people who are literally starving elsewhere in the world, right? Wherever they are, in your home country or abroad. But as soon as those people have enough, you're done insofar as your requirements go for people abroad. Now, insofar as there's also people in your own society, you might be required to do more for them, over and above making sure that they're not starving anymore. So, let's say that $100 a week or something, whatever, is enough for everybody in the world. So, we might be required to make sure that everyone has $100 a week. But then in our society, given the place it is, it might mean that equality requires that we give them more than $100 a week, say $200 a week. And so why do we owe these people 200 and only them 100? And then the idea is, well, because they live here and you live here. So you're part of the same country or society. For Singer, that doesn't fly, right? Remember, he says, like, well, this is a question about distance or like citizen. These things don't all apply. He thinks that's a life is a life, and so you spend the money where it does the most good. Right? That's basically the logic of the view. All right. Thanks for bearing with me. More on this on Thursday. See you then.